All right. Next question is from Erica with a K. She asks, would you comment on the consumption of raw milk? Curious as to your insights on its health benefits.
Yeah. I don't recommend it. Don't recommend raw milk consumption. This one actually brought back some memories. So I've said before, like most of the questions and the issues that we talk about, like I either believed and did myself. So back in my Boston days, there was a period of time I drove 2 hours each way to buy raw milk from a farm because it was illegal.
That.
Yeah, it was illegal to sell in stores. I think it probably still is. So you had to buy it directly from the farm. And I eventually became part of like a milk co-op. So I didn't have to do all the driving every weekend or whatever. And I probably did that for like a year or so. And it was all under kind of the belief it was more healthy, more natural, better, all that stuff, right? So in the show notes, I'm going to link to a page from the FDA, and it's called like Raw Milk Misconceptions and the Danger of Raw Milk Consumption. And I know that we have kind of this general mistrust of the government, but I think it's a really great resource because they actually take 14 claims about raw milk, which is way more than I kind of was aware that people have about raw milk. And they go one by one and they give peer-reviewed scientific evidence for it, And so to keep this episode from being an hour long, I'm just going to kind of touch on 3 of the ones that they bring up. One being raw milk does not cure or treat asthma or allergy. The second one being raw milk is not nutritionally superior to pasteurized milk. And the third one is that raw milk is not safer than pasteurized milk. And so these were definitely ones that I believed raw milk was more beneficial than pasteurized milk. Regarding the treating asthma and allergy, I guess there was a study that's kind of just been continually misinterpreted. It was in 2007, and they found an inverse relationship between farm milk consumption and asthma and allergy. And it's become, from what I understand, sort of the poster child for raw milk enthusiasts. And it does have, weaknesses of being an association study, of course. But the real problem is farm milk has been misinterpreted in the lay press to be the equivalent of raw milk. When the paper itself says, hey, we can't draw conclusions about raw versus pasteurized because half of the farms boil their milk. So it's not even a study about raw milk, and yet it's being used as like, hey, raw milk is, fixing these issues. The next one was about raw milk being nutritionally superior. The pasteurization process does not change protein quality, digestibility, fat composition, mineral or vitamin content, or bioavailability, except for potentially vitamin C. Vitamin C does tend to be susceptible to heating and therefore in the pasteurization process. But milk isn't really a good source of vitamin C. So it's like, okay, are you really dependent on that for that? No. So it begs the question of whether or not that even matters. But then the last point that I really wanted to touch on, because I certainly believe this myself, is that pasteurized milk is definitely safer than raw milk. Because when you look at the total amount of raw milk outbreaks, it might not seem that many, but when you consider that less than 1% of people drink raw milk in the US anyway, it's actually really high frequency, especially relative to pasteurized. And so that's what pasteurization is doing. It's killing off the bacteria such as E. coli that can be a result of just handling the product. And, it's just sort of this dichotomy that, natural is always better. And people will talk about kind of the hidden dangers in some of the food. And some of the hidden dangers in our food are these bacterial contaminations, the viruses, from just, having a product that's on the farm and being handled by different humans. It's not additives. It's not plant lectins that are these hidden dangers. It's like actual food contamination, right? And so that's what pasteurization is doing for us. It's getting rid of the most risky aspect of milk consumption while not altering its nutritional composition. And so I just think this is another great example. It's like, this is a perfect example of where like the modern day invention or improvement is better than, quote, natural. I guess I would say I'm not like, I don't think every raw milk consumption is with hazard. But once we start looking at food systems and distribution, we have to start really thinking about these food safety issues in terms of contamination.